The city of Tokyo was alive as always, bustling, vibrant, oblivious to the darkness lurking in its depths. But for Kage, the world around him felt like a distant echo, muffled and hazy. He wandered the streets aimlessly, his thoughts consumed by the man he had met in the alley and the revelation that had shattered his fragile sense of control. Subject 47. The name felt like a weight pressing down on his chest, suffocating him. He had been more than just an experiment, more than just a vessel for power. He was a weapon, a tool for something far greater than himself. And the worst part, he was starting to believe it. Cage's violet eyes flickered with dark energy as he walked through the streets. He could hear the thoughts of the people around him, their worries and desires. But none of it mattered. They were insignificant to him. None of them knew what he had become, or the truth behind his power. But one thought echoed louder than the rest. Where did he go? The voice was familiar. It wasn't a stranger. It was Sora. Kage paused, his feet rooted to the ground. He could feel her presence not far behind him, the faintest pulse of her energy. She had been following him, no doubt worried, maybe even searching for him. It angered him, but more than that, it unsettled him. Sora's footsteps grew closer, and Kage knew she was just around the corner. He could hear her breathing, her heartbeat, the vulnerability she had shown him, offering her hand, her trust. Kage had rejected it. But now, as he stood there, the echoes of her voice in his mind seemed to tug at something deeper inside him. He clenched his fists. The hunger in him was louder, stronger. But for the first time, it felt like it was warring with something else, something human. Sora appeared at the corner, her eyes searching the streets, as though looking for something. Someone. When she spotted Kage, her face softened, relief washing over her features. "Kage," she called, her voice hesitant but hopeful. Kage turned his back on her without a word, his body tense, his mind screaming at him to push her away. But Sora's voice reached him again, like a whisper on the wind. "You don't have to do this alone." Her words cut deeper than any blade could. He felt the rage inside him flare up, the darkness threatening to take over. He couldn't let her in. Not again. He walked faster, his pace quickening, but Sora's footsteps followed closely. "Kage, stop!" she shouted, her voice shaking with a mixture of concern and determination. "What's happening to you? You're not the person you used to be." Kage stopped dead in his tracks, his fists trembling with the desire to strike. But then, a voice interrupted the moment, a sharp, cold voice that sliced through the air like a blade. "Enough." Kage turned to see the figure standing in the shadows, the man from the alley. His cold eyes glinted with amusement as he stepped into the dim light. "Sora." Kage's voice was low and dangerous, a growl rising in his chest. "Get away from me." But Sora didn't move. She stood her ground, her eyes flicking between Kage and the man. "Who are you?" she demanded. The man smiled, a cruel, knowing smile. "I am the one who gave Kage his purpose, his power." He took a step forward, his presence oppressive. "But he doesn't fully understand it yet." Sora's face hardened. "What are you talking about? What power?" The man's smile widened. "The same power that flows through him, coursing through his veins. The same power that made him different. The power that was designed to change the world." Kage's heart skipped a beat. He could feel the power inside him stirring, rising in response to the man's words. It was seductive, tempting him to embrace it fully, to let go of the remnants of his humanity. "You don't know what you're talking about," Kage growled, his eyes flashing violet. "I don't need you." The man's eyes glinted with something dark, something ancient. "You think you're in control, Kage. You think you can walk away from this, from what you are." He stepped closer, his voice lowering to a whisper. "You are this power. It is you." Sora stepped forward, her face a mix of fear and defiance. "What are you going to do to him?" she demanded, her voice shaking. "He's just a kid. You can't control him." The man's laughter was cold, cruel. "I'm not trying to control him. I'm here to help him unlock what he's capable of, to show him the truth of his own potential." Cage's body trembled, a mixture of fear and rage bubbling up within him. He felt the power surging inside him, pulling at his very core, and for the first time he was torn. A part of him wanted to break free, to escape this life that had been thrust upon him. But another part, the darker part, wanted to surrender, to become the weapon they had always intended him to be. "You're nothing but a tool," Cage spat, his fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. "I don't need anyone." Sora's voice cut through the air again, her words softer now, but filled with urgency. "You don't have to do this, Cage. I don't care what happened to you. I just want you to come back. Please." Cage's violet eyes flickered as he glanced at her. The humanity within him stirred, torn between her words and the darkness that had taken root inside him. For a brief moment he almost believed it. Believed that he could come back, that he could escape this nightmare. But then the man spoke again, his voice sharp and insistent. "You don't get it, do you? You're not running away from anything. This is who you were always meant to be." Cage's vision blurred, and the darkness surged within him, drowning out everything else. Sora's face, filled with concern, was swallowed by the shadows. His breathing quickened as the power inside him threatened to burst free. And then, with a sudden, violent motion, Kage let out a scream that shattered the air. The energy within him exploded outward, sending both Sora and the man flying back. The world around him spun, the cityscape twisting in his mind as the power surged through him like wildfire. He could hear the man laughing, his voice fading into the chaos that Kage had unleashed. But Kage didn't care anymore. He was free. The man's words, Sora's pleas, they were nothing. Only the power remained. And Kage, the boy who had once been human, was gone. In his place stood something else, something darker, something unstoppable. As the dust settled, Kage stood alone, his violet eyes glowing with an intensity that reflected the storm raging inside him. He had crossed the point of no return, and the world would never be the same again.